So bad.
Out of a pocket. Cool. 2 miles. Hand them up, please. I can't wait to see the trees pop. I'm so excited. You know, Mason,
It's funny to see how fast I go.
next time, we want half sheet of paper. It also saves paper, you can keep it quiet, so we don't need somebody to see. That's what we call efficiency. It's not. All right, let's finish up this battle and then do a few things. Tomorrow we are going to watch a video in class. I know, ooh, it's going to be home movies of my childhood, and that's what we'll watch. Of course, I was at a time for cameras, and so you ever see those little flip books? You kind of show the pages, so it'll just be me. That'll be me. It'll be so exciting. Actually, there's no home movies. There's no photographic evidence of my childhood. Yes.
It's just that.
I've seen them. Yeah. I've used one of those. Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, I've done it. I've done it at like a little shop. Yeah, they're cool. It's cool. All right, here we go. What battle is this? Yeah, that's Quebec. And let's review about, we had lots of war stuff. So why did Washington sign that treaty saying he ordered the execution, the assassination of human beings? Yeah. They couldn't read it, and he didn't want to do what? Yeah. Yeah, he never made a mistake. He couldn't stomach it. That was a serious character flaw of his. Oh, where was the battle where he led the rear guard, but it was a disaster for the British? That's about what I heard. Remember the Battle of Monongahela? Oh. Did we say that in class? Monongahela? Try it again. Monongahela. Now, some of you might, you're going to get older. You might want to have children's someday. Have you thought about names for children's? Monongahela. Wouldn't that be a great name? Little Monongahela. They would have so much fun in elementary school with that name.
I can't spell elementary spelling.
That's the best part. You make up every day. You make up a new spelling. And so we went to Quebec. Who was the prime minister who organized victory? Yeah. And what's the name for the government debt? They issue what? What do we call it? U.S. government? Government debt? You'll go with that on it. And if whoever is borrowing the money, the government, I'd be kind of shaky. What do they have to give on those bonds to get people to buy them?
More interest.
Higher interest, yeah. And let's see if we did it. Oh, what do we call that war? The French-Canadian War when it became worldwide. What's it called? Yeah, the 7 Years' War. So we're after Quebec. Did we scale up the cliff yesterday?
Yeah.
They scrambled up the cliff, and did we talk about? Okay, we talked about 17th century combat. Oh, why did the British wear? Why did they all European armies try to wear bright-colored uniforms? Yeah, all the smoke, and why red for the British? Yeah, relatively cheap. There was a lot of it. And do we talk about one more thing? I kind of, I'm always on different areas of my classes. about how they got people to stand in those lines and take someone shooting at their face.
You gotta break it out.
Yeah, they break it out, they whip it out. So what's cat of nine tails again? Can we talk about that?
Well, it's a bit.
Huh? Okay, so for example, you're in line, in the army, you're standing in line, you're a regular soldier. In Britain, it's a 7-year hitch. Russia had adopted something called conscription. What do we don't call it conscription in the United States, even though it means the same thing. The draft. Army jail. That's what it is. We haven't had the draft in the United States since 1972. But, for example, right now in Russia and Ukraine. In Russia, it's pretty much you're walking, you're in the army. Ukraine, what is it now? 17 to 39. They could be called man and woman. So you're either very close or. Well, Russia, yeah, and Russian jails would be fun. Moving on. So they're in the army. They're standing. British Army, 20-year hitch. That's how long they volunteer. And you're in this line, and they're drilling, loading that musket. And they turn their head. What happens? Not 10 lashes for the cat of nine tails. What's a cat of nine tails? You don't even need the stuff like a piece of metal, but it's just a handle with 9 whips on it. You can put like metal around to make it even more horrific. So it's instead of 1 lashes, each whip is like 9 lashes. Let's put it this way: about 10 lashes would probably kill any one of us. The shock would kill us. Me included. I know you're thinking, not you, Mr. Conductor, because the shock would be so awful. So, drop your bayonet, 20 lashes. March out of step, you're going to be wheeled. Wheel. They take a wagon, tip it up. They tie your thumbs to the wheel and just hang there for a day. They make them so scared of their officers that they will take a musket off their face. That's how they do it. That's how they break. The whipping, the whipping, the whipping. We'll come back to that later. And one more thing. Militia didn't have that. They didn't want to be stuck with bayonets. They didn't want to be shot in the face. What did they do? Run. So it's always going to be an open battle. Militia would run. That was always the deal. What the regular soldiers would complain. But the militia is acting rationally. Half of the French force was militia. And it was a terrible move for Montcalm to come out and fight them there. He should have stayed in his fort. When militias kind of defended, they could stand and load their musket and have something like, like the wall of their fortification. They call it, when it goes to your breast, they call it breastworks back then. If you have breastworks, you can stand, you feel relatively protected, they won't run. In the open, they're rational, they run. The British are all regulars. They've gone through the discipline and they're angry and they don't run as fast. Not saying they won't. Montcalm put the militia in the middle and they actually attacked at first thinking we can win just one quick victory. The British have got to be exhausted. But then Montcalm was wounded. And when the militia saw him fall off his horse, what did they do? Yeah, the heck with this. Boom, took off running. When the middle fell, the whole French line fell. Ironically, Montcalm, who had been mortally wounded, was only about 50 yards away from Wolfe, who was also mortally wounded. Both commanders, both Wolfe and Montcalm, they both died. Wolfe won one of the most important battles, not only in British history, but the history of the United States. This would change everything. This is one of the most famous paintings. This is in, I can't remember which museum in London it is. I think it's in the Tate Portrait Gallery. I can't remember. There's 3 galleries. And it's one of the most famous pictures in British history. And remember what I told you about how they draw portraits, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Look at his face. How old does he look there? Younger than you. And a decisive victory. And eventually, there'll be more fighting. Prussia barely held on in Europe, but we got to move on. Montreal would fall the next year to the French or to the British. But this was a clear British victory. Now, there's going to be 3 treaties actually with this. We lumped them together under one Treaty of Paris in 1763. We do this a lot. Have you heard of the Treaty of Versailles ending World War I? There's actually 4 treaties. We just lumped together as one. And so, a huge victory. All land west of the Mississippi, Britain got. And that included Spanish Florida, who was an ally of the French. This is a pretty amazing victory. They got all this. Now, France had a choice. Keep New France or keep some islands in the Caribbean. They kept some islands in the Caribbean. You don't need to write down the islands. Do not. I just put the islands. You don't need to write down the names of the islands. Just know they had islands. I put them down there because I kept forgetting, and so I wrote them down. I knew Guadalupe, but I could not remember Martinique and Saint Lucia. I just forgot. What crop made these islands so valuable that the French kept those and gave up all this claim? Sugar. Now, today we know that Canada is a very wealthy country, along with, basically they're going to let them keep this, all this area too. But it shows you the value of sugar. But it also shows you what colonies are. All 3 of those islands are very poor now. The wealth was sucked out. Next. Oh, this might have a little bit of an impact on this thing called the United States winning the Revolutionary War. The French having these islands. We'll come back to that. Spain, in the secret agreement with the French, got the land claim to Louisiana. France claimed all the tributaries of the Missouri River, named it after King Louis, Louisiana. You are sitting in that land claim. I'm standing on it. So basically everything that's a tributary of the Missouri, east of the Continental Divide, France had that claim. Yes, there's a lot of people who live there. No, they didn't bother to ask them. France didn't want Britain to get it. That's another one of those, who knows how things would be different. There's a few more things with the treaty, but this was a massive victory for the British. It changed everything. The results of this. The French threat being gone. Remember, what was it called? We just had it in a quiz where the British couldn't enforce the navigation laws. Yeah, salutary neglect. The biggest reason was war. Now that's gone. Now that's gone. Everything will change. The British can get back to mercantilism. Next. Who gets the land? All this land now is open, at least to the colonial point of view. Open, except for the people who live there, of course. And they're thinking, we're going to get it. Who's going to get it? The colonies? Individuals in the colonies? Will there be new royal colonies? Who knows? Are they going to let the people who live there actually keep their land? The colonies also felt they won the war. They didn't see Quebec as the issue. They saw fighting along the frontier against some French and their American Indian allies. It was colonial militia that made Fort Pitt. And so they saw, we won. What do we need the British for? They felt really independent. And then the British looked at those dumb colonials and thought, we saved them again. That's the way they looked at it. And now they're going to have to show us the respect we deserve. Those bunch of ignorant colonists, we will show them. And lastly, remember those bonds that Pitt had the British government sell? We got that debt. And how are we going to get that debt? The colonies will finally have to pay. So you have this feeling about the land. And now the French, which kind of unified the colonies because they're scared about being taken by the French, that's gone. They both felt they won, and now the British are going to enforce those navigation acts. There's going to be a whole series of laws which will be direct and indirect ways to enforce the navigation acts. So we're going to have like the Sugar Act, we're going to have the Stamp Act, and the Townshend Acts, and the Declaratory Act, the Currency Act, the Tea Act. They're all trying to force the navigation acts. You have to know some of them. That's the way life is. So, victory. Everything won. Literally, even before they negotiated the treaty, let alone signed it, the gap between the colonies and the British were widening extremely fast. Thus, we call this the widening breach. The breach, the gap between the colonies and Britain. That's the Boston Massacre from 1770. Would you like a reading assignment? I almost forgot to give it to you. I was asking because I want you to feel part of the process. Do you feel empowered by me asking you that? Let me try that again. Do you feel empowered? Yeah. Ah, give me something. We got to do it. It's life. For Monday, you have to read 167 to 183 in America. I totally forgot. This is a big one. This has all the events that led up to the Revolutionary War, all of them, after the proclamation. 167 to 183. Big chapter. Got it? Everyone got that? For Monday. All right. So let's go back to the results of the war. This is a map from right after the treaty. Isn't that a good map?
Yeah.
That's a... Okay. Now let's be very clear about this. What parts could they explore? And they knew well. This is really good, isn't it? No idea. We knew a couple ships had been there. We knew there was a river there. I like how they just went, okay. And then stuff, they had no idea. Hey. Yeah, hey, they didn't know. They just knew there was land. So you can tell the areas they knew. So almost immediately after the treaty, in fact, the treaty had not even been signed. One of the most important events of this era is going to happen as a direct result of the Treaty of Versailles. Did I say Versailles? So now we're after World War I, after the Treaty of Paris. Really good news. There's going to be 2 treaties of Paris in this unit. One 1763, one 20 years later. 1783. Pontiac's War. Now, I put rebellion in parentheses because you'll see it listed all the time as Pontiac's Rebellion. All the time. When I was in school, I was taught that. It's been on the AP exam as Pontiac's Rebellion. It's been also as Pontiac's War. Last year, almost, God, it was something like 45% of the test was Revolutionary War and before. It was kind of mind-boggling. That's the problem with standardized tests. As you all know, you're stuck with what you get, right? That's one of the big problems with it. It's the world we inhabit. So, the Northwest tribes, most of them were allied with the French, some were allied with the British, found out that without their consent, of course not, their land, which they thought the French were going to guarantee for them, now was given to the British. They found that out. And now the British are coming. They knew the British, there's so many more of them, and they never end, their desire for land seems to be limitless. Somebody walking up there. We're safe. I got a room. About 8, maybe 9 years ago, I came back from the summer, and this broom was sitting here. And I've left it there ever since, and wondering if anyone's ever going to take this broom. And the broom just sits there. And so, like every year, they clean out, they wax the floors and everything. I come back, the broom is right out there. So someday, someone's going to say, we lost our blue broom. Okay. So, the Ottawas, they formed a confederacy. The Ottawas, this was a tribe that lived in this area right here. They were allies with the French. They formed a confederacy, and a few of the Iroquois joined them. The Iroquois were mostly British allies, but they realized nothing's going to stop the British. The confederacy is breaking up over this. Some hated the Ottawa, hated the Shawnee so much they stayed with the British, and they attacked every British fort on the Great Lakes. Now, these were once French forts, now they're all British forts. And also a bunch of forts in what is now Western Pennsylvania. They attacked everywhere. Now, this is the reason why we call this a war. A war is so much more appropriate because it shows the point of view of not only the British, but also the various members of this confederacy. Pontiac was one of the leading warriors. We've had people like this before. And so here, for example, they besieged Fort Detroit, and this is a picture from the 19th century. Now, if we use the word rebellion, what does that imply about who owns this land? Who has the rightful claim? Yeah. Yeah. The British had it, and therefore those are rebelling against British rule. Yeah. So there was peace, they rebelled. Even if you're sympathetic with those who rebelled, it implies that the British had a legal claim. When, to the point of view of the tribes, for good reason, we lived here, we're fighting a war to protect our land. And that is a much more appropriate, because of course they don't, why should they have to follow what the British and French agreed for themselves? Yeah, words really matter. By saying rebellion, even if you don't think about it, even if you're sympathetic to the tribes, which I am biased towards that, you're just kind of, it just comes into your head that way. And I'll try to show you how words really matter, how we label things matter. So it would eventually be a stalemate. They tried to besiege Detroit and some forts here. They took some forts. They were successful. The problem is the various tribes did not fight as an organized unit. They're individual fighters, very brave and talented at what they do. But when you lay siege, surround a fort to starve them out, they didn't have that kind of organization. That was one of the liabilities that the tribes are going to have for this entire time. And so they didn't win, but to the British back in London, they're like, you've got to be kidding. We've been fighting war after war after war after war. We won, and now there's more war. We're done. And we just got a big hunk of India. We don't want to do this anymore. And so that's going to lead to the proclamation of 1763. And this was to appease, basically to give in to the tribal aggression, as they saw. Even though the tribes were not really being aggressive, but trying to defend their land against invaders who were clearly invading. And they didn't want any more war. So what they said is, what's causing the war? British colonists moving into their land. Obviously, that's what's causing it. Taking their land. And so they said no colonial settlement west of the Appalachian Mountains. So they basically came to the divide, the highest point of the Appalachian Mountains, and said no more settlement. Now what this is basically telling the 13 colonies, your border's here. I don't care what your claim is, your border's here. What is supposed to be the reaction of the colonists? That seems like a good idea. You're right. We don't want war. We're stealing their land. That's completely unfair. They went absolutely nuts. You're taking our land that we won. You didn't do anything. And now you say you can't have it? And they looked at it logically, too. The British will almost certainly break this agreement. And they'll take it for London and not for Virginia or New York or whomever. And so the reaction would be, infuriated is not strong enough. Small farmers who were using up their land wanted better land, or people who didn't have a farm, thought they could get their own small farm and take the land over the Appalachian Mountains. Plantation owners desperate for land. What do you call these people who don't have money and hoping to buy the land cheap and sell it at a profit? Including men like George Washington. Furious. And remember, he's already mad because he felt slighted after the Monongahela. Speculators were going nuts. And the colonies themselves. They're now stopped at the Appalachian Mountains. And this is going to be a festering wound that will not heal. Now, a lot of people do this. When I was in school, they focus on the Stamp Act and the Sons of Liberty, things we'll watch tomorrow. Just a second. They focused on that. And yeah, the Stamp Act was really a big deal, and the protests about that all leading up to like the Boston Tea Party. But all these colonies had claim, Virginia, Connecticut, Massachusetts. They all had a claim. And now you're taking that away? So when they were saying the British are putting a tax on everything, and they took your land. The British are giving a monopoly of tea sales, and they're going to take over our entire economy with this Tea Act, and they took their land. Does that make sense? It was always, and they did this. That is what really made them mad. This is always in the back of their mind. You're stopping us right here. And yes, to the colonial point of view, they know they're going to be stealing the land from somebody else, but it's our right to steal them. And this is, but a lot of settlers, the British can't enforce this. They just ignored it. A squatter is somebody who comes in and takes land without a legal permit. When I mean illegal, you notice I put in quotes, legal to the point of view of the British. And they're taking it from the people who already live there. But a squatter just comes in and takes it. So they don't have property ownership. And that is the strange thing about property ownership. I have a little piece of property. I'm sure a lot of you, some of you might own property, parents might own property. That's all relatively new. You know, that was all taken from the people who lived here, 150 years ago. We don't care about your claim, but now we'll make people claim now. Well, they said the heck with it. And they're even going to form their own colony. Do you see the name? Transylvania. Who agrees with me that that would have been awesome if there was a state of Transylvania? Don't you agree? Don't you agree that would have been so cool? No, we get Kentucky. All right. The most famous would be Daniel Boone. Have you heard of Daniel Boone? He was this cantankerous guy who appeared not to like anybody, and he crossed over the pass called the Cumberland Gap right here and moved in. In fact, the people who moved around him, they're going to create a town called Boonesboro. Eventually, he would die in what is now Missouri. No one liked him, so he just kind of kept moving westward and taking land. But this is going to become part of a great myth of civilization crossing into the pristine wilderness and taking land. This is one of the most famous paintings. So it's from the 19th century, but it's showing Daniel Boone crossing what's right here. It's called the Cumberland Gap, right? Where are we at here? Right here. Or here, I'm sorry. And you'll notice something. He's emerging from the dark of the gap into they're bringing the light of civilization. Notice how he's light, implying what about the people who live there? Yeah, they're dark, they're uncivilized. By the way, that whole light dark will come out of slavery too. That's another story. And this is going to be the part of the settler myth. That this was all wide open land to be civilized by the United States. The pristine myth. It's literally called the pristine myth. We've talked about this because of the disease, so this is not a new thing. That's the only portrait of Daniel Boone. And I like that one, but it shows him there. That's by the time he's about ready to go westward, or in, it's, you know, this is the Missouri Historical Society, so because he lived, too many people had moved to Missouri, but with his, what's the hat made out of? Yeah, beaver, yeah. Well, pretty soon this whole myth is going to come by the end of the century of the intrepid settler civilizing this land and kicking out more and more. They were called the American Indians like savages, which is just horrifically, well, it's color of skin too, so racist. And this become soon, you notice now, this is 1870s, this picture of Daniel Boone. And he's got a coonskin hat and this brave settler. And this is going to become part of the myth we have to this day. In the late 1950s, the most popular show of the late 1950s, the mid-50s was Davy Crockett. Here's Daniel Boone with a coonskin hat. Same actor played them both. I think that's hilarious. And you could buy a coonskin hat, buy little toy soldiers. Got the hat. Here's kids with the hat. I had a hat like this. Anybody have a coonskin hat? You do? A few do? I had one. And if you, I mean, so this whole mythology would become ingrained, and this is 1950s, 60s into the 1970s. Oh, it's 70s week. I should have worn my hat. And you can also get a skin hat haircut. I just put that up there because I thought it was hilarious. You got to admit, he pulls it off. He looks good, doesn't he? Oh yeah. So we're setting the stage for the revolution. So we have death, the proclamation line, people ignoring it, but furious about it. Everybody, take out that packet for the Revolutionary War. Now, one thing about it, I put a worksheet for a video in there. I have bad news for all of you, or good news, depending on your point of view. I decided not to use that video. I feel guilty about it now. I'm over it, I'm moving on. Are you with me? We're moving on. I'm going to show a different video. But, no, hold on to it. Look at the documents, the fornication laws. Hey, it's time to review a little fornication law. That would have been a really funny one to say in the hallway. Okay, the second act here. See that second paragraph on here? Don't worry about the third one, just the second paragraph. I would like you to read that document. Don't start. Read that document, underline the key passages, and then in this margin, write down what its purpose is, what it's trying to achieve. Now, before we do that, a couple things. Do you remember what fornication is? Do you remember the issue with the slaves and what's happening there? When it's talking about servants, who are they referring to as servants? What kind of servants? Indentured servants. Which, when they're indentured servant, what are they? A slave. So you got to assume the same kind of thing is happening, right? Now, before you read the document, jot down 4 events that happened that affected this fornication law at about that time. Remember, there was a rebellion. You remember the really big rebellion? Yeah, all those. Yeah, jot down a few things just so you don't forget. Then read that document. You got. I know it's not much time, but go. You already have the documents. You got the documents on?
No.
You don't have them?
No, they're not.
Okay, quick one. Go. You have to get that. You got to show. Yeah. Someone's going to show me tomorrow, beginning of class. There are no numerical rules yet, and there was no dictionary yet. Oh, a parish. That's the name. The best way to look at it as like a county. It's a county. Don't think. I thought it too when I first read it years ago. Like I thought like sure. Okay, read, do it. But 4 things. If you have to go peek in your notes, do it. You might need to review. But try to get 4 things and then read the document. Think of 4 things. Then, and if you can't, you're gonna have to start doing that. Going back and reviewing. Documents don't make sense unless you have background material. Well, no, it has to be around that era. Remember, fornication law. So there's a, it says 1661, but there's a bunch of stuff during that time. So 20 years before that. Yeah, that's exactly. What's the big rebellion? Yeah, you got it. So, what colony, what crop? That's all you need. Remember the little piece of land they got? Yep. Just get some background. And we know what the masters are doing this was, right? We know that's happening. You notice I waited a week, so you had to kind of go back and review. And then read it. 1 paragraph, underline, write down, I'll shut up. Four or five things for context before you read it. And this should only take you a few minutes. And each time we do it, it'll take a little bit shorter. Dusty, if you look on Teams on your phone, I'll let you do that document. Oh, if you're going to be gone tomorrow, there'll be a few. I'll give you that worksheet for the video. And I always stop videos and add lots of stuff. You know, there's like class for me, to go change your face. Always stuff to do. And I'll try to narrow it down. Somebody else, who else? That's right. Let's see. Oh. Anybody else? What else we got tomorrow? And it's a 40-minute class tomorrow, so those who be gone tomorrow, you will probably get through half of them.
Do you know the schedule?
Yeah.
Could you see it?
Huh?
Could we see it?
It's up on Teams already. Go and check your file.
So what's it? No, it's your face.
It's not gonna dig it with.
Don't even think about
Father
it. Service
put
on
in
the map.
security to keep the child safe and perished.
Freedom to the Now you got it. By the way, when you read this, I hope you catch how awful they're treating the servants.
Yeah.
This is beyond bad. Who wrote the law? The servants, obviously, right? Have a good day, everybody. See ya, goodbye. Oh, get this. Because what happens? You either go A or get Now think about it. So the servant says something. So what the servant says. If the servant like says the master has done this, they get whipped. So will the servant ever tell the master for doing it? So this is worse than all. It doesn't fit in with the other one too, you see? Yeah, just that.
So you guys were. Thank you.
Yeah, y'all bet.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. Or Monday, right?
Tuesday.
Yeah. Yeah, so someone who's a surgeon. They would use it.
But it's not, it doesn't.
But happened. That one. Yeah, yeah.
So I like if we need to like go back over.
I can't give you this quiz, I'll give you the other one. Put it here. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, just remind me. Oh. You're supposed to know, you're supposed to know. Yeah, you're supposed to know. It's really not my fault.
So originally. So actually, you know that. Yeah.
I did!
That's only.
Dude, yesterday we had a testing session.
We gotta have it. And the thing is, multiple choice, I don't like it. And the essay, you know it, Let's do a quiz. For your dining and or dancing entertainment, we have a quiz.
2 in 1 week.
So you can't dine and dance, or you can just dance, or you can just dine. The floor is open. Yes.
It's multiple choice, right?
Huh? This is all open-ended. I'm just gonna have one word in a question mark. And you have to tell me how you feel about it.
I can write that.
Because yesterday, it's so awesome. Oh my goodness, I knew everything, but it was like such a bad memory.
That's always the problem with that, is even if you know it, if you have nothing to trigger the memory. Yes.
How about smoking the quiz? You go make yourself a sandwich.
No, can't bribe me. I'll take it.
Hey.
But it won't affect your grade at all.
This is like
But
a
I
trade
take
between
bribes.
countries. It's like a
I am impeccably honest. I will never change your grade, but I will take your stuff if you give me. Like for example, thing. Do you want this back? Huh? You do? Now I see. That's childish. All right, have your paper. Let's go.
But I'm hoping that I get a free seat.
We'll stay in the valley, people. Look at the daylight. It's burning. Let's go.
Wait a second, this paper seems like.
Huh? No, you don't go outside. Class does not work outside.
I don't want to.
Because.
Yeah.
Everything we've learned about we tried. Actually, no. And secondly, we tried. I actually did that years and years ago. I thought, oh, it's a nice day. Let's go outside. Doesn't work. Why?
Exactly.
Everyone's like this. All says bird, squirrel, car.
This is a long time now.
Nicholas Cage.
Nick, what? Any questions from the reading? I'll be glad to answer them after the quiz.
It sounded like what we learned in class.
Any question? No, any question?
It sounded like what we did in class.
Huh?
A lot of it we talked about in class.
Yes,
We did. But
that's one of the problems. Chapter 4 and chapter 3 actually kind of should be in the same chapter.
makes sense.
Some of the, that business stuff should be chapter 3, so there is some bleed over. Yeah.
So, quick question. So first of all, with the French compared to British, it was less than a percentage, right? During colonization.
Fewer French, yeah.
It's like 10%.
10%.
Well, it was like a million compared to 70.
Yeah, so it's actually a little bit less than 10%.
In terms of the math, 70.
100,000 would be 10%.
And then also,
Yeah, that's good. That's so.
I had to think about that.
Wait. Everybody, look at this. That is. Wow.
You guys can say that.
Look at the edge.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
What part is this?
That's
better.
See, you've inspired everybody to great things. All right.
That's extra
Any other
credit.
questions?
That is.
Let's do it. Let's do the quiz. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Oh, tomorrow shortened periods. And there's an assembly for pets.
I'm in the band.
All right, here we go. Everything else for this. Okay, I'm going to give this row 4. Let's see if we can figure out why I'm giving this row 4. Oh. Haven't forgotten?
This is like 200 questions.
Okay, be quiet, everybody. That means you. Did you notice the crinkly cut? I did that for you. Crinkly cut.
You get those like you know those like tag scissors that make like a
Would you like a bonus question? No? Okay.
Is that-
Well, too late.
Yes.
Is that 9?
You speak for everybody. Bonus question. Who was Half King? What did Half King do? Just briefly, in a couple words.
Oh.
Yeah, put it by your name. Please put it by your name. Or if you put it down below, I've got this one. Oh, number 9 is obviously an open-ended question. I'll let you decide for yourself. You know, you can think about it, go from there. You know, that's. When you are done, turn it over and draw the Go to Liberty at Fort Necessity.
So you mean
Fort
a
Necessity.
circle?
It's your artistic interpretation that I will correct. That's all. Make sure your name is on the quiz.
And then draw. This is the important part. Go to Liberty. Turn it over. Draw to Liberty. Where's the go to Liberty? Draw a goat. It's people like you. I can't draw. We're still working on the quiz. We're still working on the goat at Fort Necessity. Where's the goat? Sure, that's it. Oh, yeah, there we go. The anteater of apathy. Wow. Just comes right at me. We still working on the quiz. We still working on the goat. All right. It's the goat. It's the goat's attacking.
I don't know how to make it American. Make it bad.
Anyone still working on the quiz? Got it? Finishing the last one.
I'm answering pizza.
Oh, you're answering pizza.
I also answered.
All right, we got it. Let's grade it. We haven't got the main part of the quiz done. Let's grade it. Go ahead and pass it to the person in front of you. Those are pass to the rear. Since you got your own go.
It looks unrecognizable.
As long as you don't have yours, I'm happy. Number 1, Cleveland. Number 2, Cleveland. Number 3, Cleveland. Number 4, Akron. Another. Oh, just a second.
Number 9.
I filmed last period. I forgot to shut it off. So this whole process is going to be good viewing.
Yes.
What is